Have you ever witnessed a moment so pure, so unexpected that it seems to stop time itself? A moment when the walls between celebrity and ordinary life crumble, revealing the shared humanity beneath? What would you do if you had just one chance to speak to someone who might change your family's fate forever? For one brave little girl in Los Angeles, that moment arrived on a sun-drenched afternoon that none present would ever forget. The community garden in Silver Lake bloomed with anticipation, a vibrant tapestry of colorful flowers and expectant faces. The air carried the sweet perfume of jasmine and hope as Keanu Reeves stepped out of his understated charcoal Tesla, the California sunlight catching the silver strands in his dark hair. He was dressed simply worn jeans that had seen better days, a comfortable navy button-up with sleeves rolled to the elbows, and the kind of well-loved boots that told stories of countless journeys. No entourage of bodyguards surrounded him, just two casually dressed assistants who moved with the relaxed efficiency of people who had long ago learned to match their employer's unassuming style. Have you noticed how some celebrities seem to bring their own weather with them? Keanu brought a gentle calm that spread through the gathering like ripples on still water. The garden had been transformed for today's event, a grassroots fundraiser for a new children's hospital wing that would specialize in rare pediatric conditions. Twinkling lights had been strung between the lemon trees, creating a canopy of stars even in daylight. A modest wooden platform stood ready near the center of the garden, adorned not with grandiose decorations but with children's artwork drawings of smiling doctors, healing hands, and hopeful futures. 9-year-old Sophie Martinez stood at the edge of the gathering, her small hand engulfed in her father's calloused one. Rafael Martinez worked 2 jobs, construction by day and rideshare driving by night, yet the exhaustion etched into the lines around his eyes couldn't dim the love that shone when he looked at his daughter. Sophie's dark curls had been carefully braided that morning, tiny purple ribbons woven through them to match her favorite sundress. Her eyes, the color of dark amber, followed Keanu's every move with the unwavering intensity only children can sustain. Could you imagine the courage it takes for a child to pin all her hopes on a single moment, a single question? "Remember what we talked about, Majida?" Raphael whispered, his slight accent wrapping around the words like a familiar embrace. "No matter what happens, you've already made me so proud." Sophie nodded, her small shoulders straightening with resolve. In her free hand, she clutched a carefully folded piece of paper, a drawing she'd labored over for days. The picture showed her brother Max in a hospital bed, surrounded by a rainbow of medical equipment, but with a smile that stretched across his too thin face. Max, just 6 years old, had been diagnosed with a rare form of autoimmune encephalitis, a condition where the body's immune system attacked the brain, causing seizures, cognitive delays, and a host of complications that the Martinez family's insurance barely acknowledged, let alone covered. The experimental treatment that showed promise carried a price tag that might as well have been written in the stars for all the reach Raphael had toward it. Across the garden, Keanu began to make his way through the crowd. There was something distinctly different about the way he interacted with people. Have you ever noticed how some celebrities scan over faces, their eyes already moving to the next person before they've finished speaking to the current one? Keanu was the opposite. Each person who approached him received the gift of his complete attention, as if they were the only soul in the garden worth knowing in that moment. "He's coming this way," Sophie whispered, her voice catching. "Dad, I'm scared." Raphael knelt down, eye level with his daughter, the knees of his only good pair of khakis pressing into the garden soil. "Listen to me, Sophie. Fear is just excitement that hasn't made up its mind yet. Take a deep breath. Have you ever seen courage bloom in real time? It's like watching a flower unfold in seconds rather than hours, beautiful and almost too fleeting to grasp." As Keanu approached their section of the garden, Sophie stepped forward slightly, her father's supportive hand on her shoulder. Behind them, almost hidden by a flowering hibiscus bush, was a surprise that few in the crowd had noticed: Max himself, sitting quietly in a wheelchair, a colorful blanket covering his thin legs despite the warm day. It had taken considerable effort for Raphael to bring both children today, arranging for a neighbor to help transport Max's wheelchair and medical equipment, but he had been adamant that his son deserved to be present for this moment of hope. Max watched his sister with eyes that seemed too wise for his 6 years, his pale face a canvas of both childlike excitement and the weariness that comes from battling illness daily. He fidgeted with the oxygen tube that ran beneath his nose, his free hand clutching a dog-eared comic book featuring the very actor they had come to see. The actor was in conversation with an elderly woman who was telling an animated story that made him throw his head back in genuine laughter. The sound was surprisingly rich, uninhibited in a way his more reserved public persona rarely revealed. When his eyes met Sophie's, something shifted in his expression, a recognition not of who she was, but perhaps of what she carried. Children in pain develop an old soul's gaze, and Keanu Reeves was no stranger to suffering himself. Having faced profound personal tragedies throughout his life, from the stillbirth of his daughter to the loss of his long-term girlfriend in a car accident, he carried his grief with a quiet dignity that never hardened into bitterness. "Hello there," he said, crouching down to meet Sophie at eye level, his movement fluid despite recent training for his action films. "I'm Keanu. What's your name?" The garden seemed to hush around them, as if nature itself leaned in to witness the exchange. Sophie swallowed hard, her practiced words momentarily evaporating in the warmth of his direct attention. "I'm Sophie," she finally managed, her voice small but clear. "Sophie Martinez." "Sophie Martinez," he repeated, giving her name the weight of something precious. "That's a beautiful name. It suits you." A bashful smile flickered across her face before seriousness reclaimed her expression. "Mr. Reeves, I drew this for you." She thrust forward the folded paper, which he accepted with both hands, as if receiving a rare manuscript. "Have you ever shared something deeply personal with a stranger? Isn't there an exquisite vulnerability in that moment before you know how they'll respond?" Keanu carefully unfolded the drawing, taking time to absorb every crayon stroke and colored pencil detail. His expression changed subtly as he studied the image of Max, recognition dawning of what this conversation might truly be about. "This is wonderful artwork, Sophie. You're very talented," he said, his tone genuine. "Who is this brave young man in the hospital bed?" Sophie's lower lip trembled slightly, but her voice held steady. "That's my brother Max. He's 6. He has a sickness in his brain that makes him have seizures and forget things sometimes. The doctors say there's a special treatment that could help him, but..." She faltered, and Raphael gently stepped closer. "Insurance won't cover it," he explained quietly, dignity evident in his straight posture despite the admission. "It's experimental still." Something flickered in Keanu's eyes, a shadow of old pain, perhaps, or recognition of the cruel randomness that determines which families can afford hope and which cannot. He remained crouched at Sophie's level, apparently unconcerned about the gathering crowd or the event organizers glancing nervously at their watches nearby. "Sophie," Keanu said, his voice pitched for her alone though others could hear, "may I ask why you wanted to give me this drawing today?" The garden held its collective breath. Nearby conversations faded to nothing. Even the birds seemed to pause their songs, as if understanding the gravity of what unfolded beneath the lemon trees. Sophie took a deep breath, her small hands twisting the fabric of her sundress. When she spoke, the words tumbled out in a practiced rush, as if she'd rehearsed them in front of her bedroom mirror countless times. "My teacher showed us a video about how you have a secret foundation that helps sick children and kids with cancer, but you don't tell anyone because you don't do it to be famous or get your picture taken. She said you lost someone you loved a long time ago, and instead of staying sad forever, you decided to help other people." She paused, drawing another breath. "Max is the best brother in the whole universe. He tells the funniest jokes even when the medicine makes him feel bad, and he never complains even though I know it hurts sometimes. Dad works all the time now, and I hardly see him, but it's still not enough money. Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. I don't have anything to give you except this picture. But I thought, maybe if you knew about Max, you might want to help him too. Have you ever witnessed raw honesty cut through all social pretense? How it creates a moment of such authenticity that everyone present feels stripped of their usual armor. The silence that followed her words was profound. Several onlookers discreetly wiped away tears. Raphael stood tall behind his daughter, love and worry and pride warring visibly on his weathered face. Keanu remained perfectly still, his eyes never leaving Sophie's. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a gentle gravity that seemed to embrace not just the girl before him, but everyone within earshot. Thank you for trusting me with this, Sophie, he said. That's the bravest thing I've seen anyone do in a very long time. He glanced down at the drawing again, his finger lightly tracing the rainbow of medical equipment surrounding the smiling boy. You know, courage comes in many forms. There's the kind that makes headlines running into burning buildings or performing daring rescues. But then there's your kind of courage, Sophie. The quiet kind that gets up every day and faces impossible things with hope and love. Do you remember a moment when someone really saw you, not just looked at you, but truly saw who you were at your core? Sophie nodded solemnly, understanding flowing between them like an invisible current. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook and pen. The kind that travelers and poets carry to capture fleeting thoughts. I'd like to know more about Max and what he needs, he said, addressing both Sophie and Raphael now. Not for publicity or photos, but because your brother matters. Would that be all right? Raphael's stoic composure wavered. Mr. Reeves, we didn't come here to. Keanu raised a gentle hand. Please. Just Keanu. He stood slowly, bringing himself eye level with Raphael now. And I understand. You're not asking for charity. You're fighting for your son with everything you have. That commands my deepest respect. He turned slightly, gesturing to one of his assistants who approached with quiet efficiency. This is Michelle. She helps me with my foundation work. Could I ask you to share your contact information and some details about Max's condition and treatment options? As Raphael spoke quietly with Michelle, Keanu turned his attention back to Sophie, who was watching the exchange with wide, disbelieving eyes. Sophie, he said, his voice warm with conviction, I want you to remember something. Sometimes the universe puts the right people in the right place at exactly the right moment. Maybe today, that's what happened for Max. Have you ever felt the precise moment when hope reignites? It's like watching a candle flame catch and grow from a dying ember, fragile at first, then steadily strengthening. Sophie's face transformed, joy illuminating her features from within. Without warning, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Keanu's waist, burying her face against his shirt. The spontaneous gesture, so natural, so unplanned, seemed to catch him by surprise for just a moment before he gently returned the embrace. It was then that Raphael quietly wheeled Max forward, the movement drawing Keanu's attention. The actor's eyes widened slightly in recognition as he saw the boy from Sophie's drawing in the flesh, his condition clearly more serious than even the detailed artwork had conveyed. This is Max, Raphael said softly, his voice thick with emotion. He wanted to be here today too. Max looked up at Keanu with undisguised wonder, his thin hand still clutching the comic book. You're really him, he whispered, his voice raspy from medication. You're really Neo. Keanu immediately knelt beside the wheelchair, bringing himself to Max's eye level with the same natural grace he'd shown Sophie. And you must be the champion I've heard about, he said, his tone shifting to match Max's energy, neither too loud nor patronizingly soft, but perfectly attuned to the moment. I'm honored to meet you, Max. The boy's smile transformed his tired face, revealing the child that illness had tried to obscure. With trembling fingers, he offered his comic book. Could you please? I'd be happy to, Keanu replied, accepting a pen from one of his assistants and signing the comic with careful attention, adding a small personal note rather than just his name. The crowd around them could no longer contain their emotion. Soft applause began, rippling outward until the entire garden filled with the sound of hands coming together in celebration of something genuine breaking through the polished veneer of a public event. When Sophie finally stepped back, Keanu knelt once more, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out what appeared to be a simple river stone, smooth and black with a single white line running through its center. I've carried this for luck on every film set since I started acting, he said, placing it in her small palm and closing her fingers around it. I think it might serve you and Max better now. Can you imagine receiving such a personal talisman from someone you admire? How would it feel to hold something that carried their journey's energy? Sophie stared at the stone in wonder, then carefully tucked it into the pocket of her sundress, patting it to ensure its safety. The event organizers had finally worked up the courage to approach, gently reminding Keanu of the schedule and his promised remarks to the gathering. With a nod of acknowledgement, he turned to address the crowd, his hand resting lightly on Sophie's shoulder while he remained positioned near Max's wheelchair. I was going to talk today about the importance of community support for medical research, he began, his voice carrying naturally through the garden without the need for the microphone that had been set up. But I think Sophie and Max Martinez just demonstrated that better than any speech I could give. His words were met with murmurs of agreement and more than a few emotional sniffles from the crowd. What matters most in this world isn't what we accomplish or what we own, he continued, his characteristic thoughtfulness evident in his measured pace. It's how we reach toward each other in moments of need. How we recognize ourselves in each other's struggles and joys. Then, making a decision that seemed to surprise even his assistants, Keanu looked directly at Sophie and Max. In fact, I'd like to propose something that wasn't on today's agenda. The foundation we're supporting does incredible work, but what moves people to action are real stories about real children facing challenges with courage. He knelt again, this time between Sophie and Max's wheelchair. Would you two consider helping me as special ambassadors for the Children's Hospital Initiative? To share your story on your terms, with your family's guidance so that other children like Max might benefit from the awareness you create? Max's eyes grew wide, while Sophie looked questioningly at her father. Raphael seemed momentarily stunned by the suggestion, aware of the potential impact such visibility could have. We would ensure your privacy is protected, Keanu continued, addressing Raphael directly now. No invasive media, no exploitation. Just the power of your family's journey helping others who might be facing similar challenges without the resources or platform to be heard. Have you noticed how rare it is to hear public figures speak without the polished veneer of prepared remarks? How powerful unscripted truth can be. Today I came here to support a new hospital wing, and I'm honored to do so, Keanu said. But Sophie reminded me why these buildings matter in the first place. Not as monuments or institutions, but as sanctuaries for our most vulnerable moments, places where children like her brother Max can find healing and hope. He glanced down at Sophie, who beamed up at him with newfound confidence. Thank you all for being here today. For showing up not just for this event, but for each other. That's what community means. The crowd's response was immediate and heartfelt. Applause echoed through the garden, mingling with the afternoon light filtering through the lemon trees to create a moment that felt both ordinary and magical. As Keanu made his way to the platform to continue the event's planned program, Raphael knelt beside Sophie, who was still watching the actor with wondering eyes. You did it, Majida, he whispered, voice rough with emotion. You were so brave. Do you think it will really help Max? She asked, hope and caution warring in her expression. Raphael looked toward Michelle, who was already on her phone, stepping away from the crowd to make what appeared to be an urgent call. He thought of the intensity in Keanu's eyes when he promised to follow up, not the practiced sincerity of a celebrity making a public gesture, but something deeper and more personal. "Yes," he said, surprising himself with the certainty he felt. "I think it really will." Have you ever experienced a twist of fate so unexpected it makes you question your beliefs about coincidence and destiny? 3 weeks later, Max Martinez was admitted to UCLA Medical Center's Advanced Neurological Treatment Program, all expenses covered by an anonymous donor. The experimental treatment protocol that had seemed as distant as the stars was suddenly underway, with a team of specialists who spoke of hope in concrete terms rather than wishful possibilities. Sophie visited her brother daily after school, reading him stories and giving him detailed accounts of classroom happenings while he underwent treatment. The fatigue from the aggressive therapy often left Max too tired to speak much, but his eyes followed his sister with unwavering attention, lighting up whenever she entered his hospital room. It was during one such visit that Sophie noticed a small package on Max's bedside table, wrapped in simple brown paper with her name written in an elegant, flowing script. "It came this morning," Max explained, his voice thin but excited. "The nice nurse said a courier delivered it special." "Open it," Raphael encouraged from where he sat in the corner armchair, dark circles beneath his eyes testifying to nights spent sleeping upright beside his son's bed. Sophie carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a beautiful leather-bound journal with a note tucked inside. "Dear Sophie, some journeys are too important not to record. I thought you might like to write about Max's progress and your own thoughts along the way. Every story matters, especially the ones about love and courage. Your friend, K. P.S. The stone you're keeping safe for me has traveled to 17 countries. Perhaps someday you can tell me where it journeys next." Tucked beneath the journal was a stack of gas station gift cards and meal delivery vouchers, practical help disguised as an afterthought, sparing Raphael's dignity while easing the financial strain of hospital visits. Have you ever received a gift that acknowledged not just your immediate need, but your deeper journey as well? In the months that followed, as Max began to respond to treatment with cautious but steady improvement, Sophie filled the journal with her 9-year-old observations. She wrote about the day Max laughed again, really laughed, not the polite chuckle he'd used to reassure them during his worst days. She documented the first time he walked the hospital corridor without assistance, and later, his triumphant return to school for half-days. What she couldn't know was that back in his Los Angeles home, Keanu received regular updates about Max's progress from the medical team. He never visited the hospital, understanding instinctively that his presence might transform a private family journey into a public spectacle. Instead, small gifts would appear occasionally, a rare comic book for Max when he completed a particularly difficult round of treatment, a set of professional colored pencils for Sophie when she won her school's art contest, a gift certificate for Raphael to a high-end restaurant with a note suggesting he take his supervisors out to lunch, which ultimately led to a promotion and better hours. Each gift came with the same simple signature, "Your friend, K." Never demanding acknowledgement, never seeking gratitude, just gentle reminders that they weren't walking their path alone. 6 months after that fateful day in the garden, the Martinez family received an invitation to a private screening of Keanu's newest film at a small theater in Los Angeles. The invitation specified that no special attention would be drawn to them, they would simply be guests like any others. When they arrived, they were shown to seats in the back row, where they could enjoy the film without being observed, including a special space adapted for Max's wheelchair. The boy had improved remarkably over the months of treatment, but still required mobility assistance for longer outings. As the lights dimmed and the movie began, Sophie felt someone quietly take the seat beside her. "How's our stone doing?" a familiar voice whispered in the darkness. Sophie's face broke into a wide smile as she reached into her pocket, producing the river stone she'd carried every day since receiving it. "It's helping us on our journey," she whispered back. Just like you said it would. And how's our ambassador program going? Keanu asked, leaning forward slightly to include Max in the conversation. Max beamed with pride in the theater's soft light. Their appearance on a local television program about the Children's Hospital Initiative had gone viral 3 months earlier, not because of Keanu's celebrity, as he had deliberately stayed in the background, but because of Max's natural charisma and Sophie's articulate explanation of what families facing rare medical conditions truly needed. The foundation had seen donations triple since their interview aired, with a dedicated fund established specifically for families navigating experimental treatments not covered by insurance. For children were already receiving care they couldn't have accessed before. We have another interview next week, Max whispered excitedly. With the national morning show. Keanu's smile was visible even in the theater's dimness. You two have done more for this cause than any celebrity ever could. You've given it an authentic voice. He looked at Sophie directly. You're the ones who made this journey possible for so many families now. I just walked alongside for a bit. As the film played on, casting its light and shadow across the faces of everyone in the theater, Sophie realized something profound that her 9-year-old heart could feel but not yet fully articulate: that sometimes heroes don't wear capes or masks, but simply remain present in the dark moments, bearing witness to both suffering and healing with equal grace. Have you ever considered that the truest form of heroism isn't about grand gestures, but about showing up consistently where you're needed most? Today, Max Martinez is 11 years old and in remission. He still has regular checkups and takes medication daily, but he plays soccer in the park near their home and maintains a solid B average in school, ordinary achievements that once seemed impossibly distant. What's extraordinary is the foundation work that now occupies much of his free time. The Young Ambassadors program that he and Sophie helped establish has grown to include 30 children across the country, all sharing their medical journeys to raise awareness and funds for research. Sophie, now 14, volunteers at the very hospital wing where her brother received treatment. She sits with children during difficult procedures, drawing pictures for them and telling stories about a magical river stone that travels the world collecting healing energy. Her artwork has been featured in a children's book about resilience, with proceeds benefiting the hospital. The Martinez family's appearance on national television alongside Keanu became a watershed moment for rare disease advocacy. The interview, conducted with dignity and focused on the issues rather than celebrity, helped change the national conversation about access to experimental treatments. While Keanu provided the initial platform, it was Max's infectious smile and Sophie's eloquent descriptions of their family's journey that truly resonated with viewers across America. And somewhere in the world, Keanu Reeves continues his work, both on and off screen. Though he appears occasionally at fundraising events with the Young Ambassadors, he always ensures the spotlight remains firmly on the children and their families. He never uses their stories to enhance his image or demonstrate his generosity, maintaining instead that they are the true heroes of this ongoing narrative. But sometimes, when filming on location around the world, he sends a postcard to the Martinez home. The messages are always simple: a brief observation about the location, or a question about Max's latest interests, signed only with a K. And occasionally, when he's photographed at premieres or on set, eagle-eyed fans might notice a purple braided bracelet peeking out from beneath his shirt cuff, a gift from a brave little girl who once trusted him with her most precious hope. In a world that often celebrates the loudest voices and the most dramatic gestures, perhaps there's something to be learned from quiet kindness that seeks no recognition. From courage that speaks up when it matters most. From connections that form in unexpected moments and continue to sustain us long after. What would you say if you had one chance to change a life? Who would you reach out to if fear weren't standing in your way? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply ask for what we need. And sometimes, the most profound gift we can offer is to truly listen when others find the courage to ask. If this story touched your heart, remember that heroes walk among us every day, not just on movie screens or in headlines, but in hospital corridors, community gardens, and anywhere people choose connection over indifference, hope over resignation, and love over fear. The question isn't whether you'll have a moment like Sophie's, but what you'll do when it arrives. What if your child had one chance to be heard? Would the world listen? Comment 1 if you'd have asked for help. Comment 2 if you've been the one to listen when no one else did. Let's talk about it below.